Whoa, it got really big and it poofed up over the top. Hey, welcome to Science Workshop. I'm Kurt, and here we are with the fermentation project. With this project, we get into another kingdom of life: fungi, mushrooms, mold, and yeast. Yeast is very useful. You can use it to make beer, you can use it to make bread. We're gonna make some bread. So let's lay out all the stuff. We've got cups. I have a bunch of cups, and these are little measuring cups. And most important thing is the flour. This stuff is all hygienic. It's all been prepared to be clean, so you can send it home with the kids. Everybody can take it home, and they can make bread at home. Here we'll just see the bread rising, and then we have two parts. We have the actual making the bread, and then we have a little experiment that we'll do with these 3 bottles of water that we'll do after I put the bread in and have it start rising. All right, so the first thing you're gonna need is the flour. You're gonna put the flour in the cup. So you wanna measure it, and you measure it with that smaller little salsa cup. And it's not that important, it's not that critical, but as big as this is about as much flour as you want in there. You can tell the kids that they can go home and do this with as much as they want. They can make an entire loaf of bread if they want. You take 1 scoop of this and dump it in the bigger cup. Okay, and then you're gonna take you're gonna take this same cup, same little mixer cup here, and you're gonna put warm water in it. And then you're gonna put the yeast in it. And you got the yeast, you open the yeast and you use the little spoon to measure the yeast. And again, it's not important at all, but you're gonna put like half a spoonful of yeast. Like that much. Right in there. And that's actually probably way too much, but that's okay. For this, we want to crank it up. And in addition to the yeast, we want to put some sugar in there. So it grows the yeast. The yeast is actually living organisms. They're living fungi right down there, and they're dormant, and they just stay there in this dormant state until they get warm and wet, and then they come to life and they start living. And when they start living, that's when we use them to make the things that we eat. One thing you could do is take the magnifying glass and look at the yeast, and it's you can see it's little pellets. Don't forget there's a higher magnification down here on the magnifying glass, which is even better. You can put a little bit out on a table and just have a look at it. It's been made into these little nuggets that have the little yeast organisms living inside of them. And the minute they get wet, it's called activated, if you read it. So activated, instant, fast-acting yeast. They're all ready to just go as soon as they get warm and wet. So you put that in, and then once the yeast start living, they need stuff to eat, just like all living organisms. And they can eat the flour. You don't have to put the sugar in, but sugar is gonna like kickstart it, because they can eat the sugar. And just like us, sugar gives us energy that's like fast, like straight, quick energy. If they have to digest the carbohydrates from the flour, it'll take a little bit longer. So you put a little bit of sugar in there, and then you also might want to put a little bit of salt to make your bread taste better, or taste, whatever salt does to the flavor of something. You put a little bit of salt in, however much you want. You remember, you're just making one little thing of bread, so don't put too much in. But there you go, sugar and salt. And then you want warm water. So you get some, if you get a little thing like this, it often makes hot water. So what you want to do is put cool water into the hot water until it doesn't burn your hand. All right. So that's what we're gonna use. Put my super clean finger in there, and that's still too hot. Put a little bit more hot water, a little bit more cold water in there until it's just warm. If it's too hot, it's gonna kill the little yeast organisms. But if it's cold, then they're not gonna wake up and start going. So I had it was about 1/3 full when I started. Now it's all the way full, and it's just about right. So now I'm gonna pour it in there. And for this, you want it like half full, a little bit more than half full. And then you take your little tongue depressor and you stir it up. Stir, 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 stir. So it's all dissolved in there. The sugar and the salt and the yeast. All dissolved in there. And then you read the cookbooks on how to make bread. Some of them say, now you want to leave that for 10 minutes or 15, 20 minutes. Yeah, you could just dump it in there and it'll still work. All right. So then once you dump it in, you start stirring it and stir it till it's all looking like dough. Bread dough. Masa. There's a science education organization in France called La Main à la Pâte, which means hands in the dough. Manos en la masa means that's what we want the kids to do. That's what we want everybody to do, to learn. You put your hands in the dough. Only then will you know how to make bread. Okay? And that's it. Make sure there's none down in the bottom that hasn't been stirred up yet. And then that's it. You want to leave that to the side and we'll watch it. Sort of notice what level it's at. You could even mark it on the side if you wanted. But you won't have to. It'll be very clear what happens. You like mark it like that. All right, now put that to the side. And why? Actually, you want to put it in a warm place. If you have a sun coming in the window, you could put that in the window and right where the sun is hitting it so it stays warm. Okay, so now let's do the other one. The other one, you want to start with 3 empty bottles. So pour this out. Or you can drink it. And then you want to put the warm water and you fill up one of the bottles. Fill it up with warm water. All the way to the top, or almost to the top. And now it's going to be an experiment. So this bottle is going to have just yeast. This bottle is going to have yeast and sugar. And then this bottle is going to have yeast and sugar and salt. And there'll be no flour, right? So we can see what the yeast does without the flour. All right, so you've got the warm water in the bottle, and then you're going to get some yeast. And here you want to use a lot of yeast. At least a full spoonful. A total full spoonful. Because you got all that water there. All right, so a huge one, and then dump it in. Make sure most of it goes in. And I'm just gonna dump the rest in. Like I said, you can't get too much. You could get a little too little, but you get too much. And then we'll put the lid on and shake it up. So all the little yeast organisms are waking up, ready for action. Right, and then you pour 1/3 of it into this one, and 1/3 of it into this one. And this is going to be the experiment. And in science, when you do an experiment, you got to have a control. One of them has got to be the control, and in the control, all the stuff is more or less how you know it's going to work. That's what you're going to compare the other two to. And so this one is going to have just yeast and water. But in these two, you're going to have sugar, and in this one, you're going to have salt. So I'm going to put some sugar in here. I'm going to put one of these little sugar packs, and another one. All right, now in addition, I'm going to put salt in here. I'm going to put 2 salts right in this one here. 1 salt, and 2 salts. And then I'm going to put the balloons on. I'll put the balloons on to seal the top. Now we're going to know if there's any gas produced inside. We'll be able to see it by watching the balloon. Because the little yeast organisms, little fungi in there, they're coming alive. And when they come alive, they're going to start eating the sugar, and they're going to be giving off carbon dioxide. That's the theory. That's what you read about. So we're going to see if we can see if that's actually the case, because this one's got no sugar, so these yeast organisms are not going to have anything to eat. These ones do have something to eat. They got sugar, and then these ones got sugar, and they've also got salt, so we can see if the salt has any impact on the activity of the yeast organisms. So you just set it up like this, and then make sure it's warm. It's still nice and warm. And again, if you've got a window to put it in, you can put it in the window in the sun to keep them even warmer. And now we'll just wait and see what happens. All right, so here we go. It's been about an hour, and a little over an hour. But by the way, you can leave these for a day. If they're going, they'll keep on going. They'll get a little bit bigger, and see what happens. But once again, this is the one with nothing, just yeast and water. This one's with yeast and sugar, and this one's yeast and sugar and salt. And this one came up first, and it's bigger. And this one was slower, but it's still there. So I don't know what that means. The little yeast organisms like that salt somehow, and it helped the whole process, and they made more carbon dioxide that way. So that's the little demo. You compare it to the variable to, compare the experiment with the variable to the control, and you can see what happens. So that's the little bubbles you can see there. They're giving off carbon dioxide. And then let's go back to our dough, our masa. Whoa, it got really big and it poofed up over the top. And now you can take your tongue depressor, you can put it back in there. Well, if you were like on top of it, you wouldn't have let it come over the top. And now this is called in bread making, this is called punching it down. You punch it down and it loses. You can see all those little bubbles. Every single one of those little bubbles is the same thing that was happening in the balloons. It was giving off the carbon dioxide, and it made a bunch of little bubbles, and that's what blew it up. And that's what's inside our bread. When we eat bread, it's nice and soft and spongy, and it's got little holes in it, and that's because of the carbon dioxide given off by those little yeast creatures. So now you can take it home, send it home, and after you punch it down, it's gonna rise again. It's gonna rise up again. You don't have to wait for it to rise. You can cook it right now. You could cook this thing. You can take it and dump it out on a tray, a metal tray, and put it in the toaster oven. Just put it on low, put it like 250, 300, and then just wait a long time until it's all, you'll see it get golden brown, and then put some butter on it and eat it. Or better yet, you can fry it. You can put some grease in a frying pan, and then you make little balls, little bolitas out of it, and you put it in there and kind of smash it down. Fry it on one side again, very low temperature, slow, and then when it's nice and brown, you flip it over and you get fried bread. And it's really good. So I was amazed. I had some from this project, and I thought, well, it's probably going to be edible, and it was actually good. So anyway, you can take it home in the bag. You got some bags, and you just put it in the plastic bag and zip it up so everybody can take it home. Like that. There it is. Let me just say one more thing for you teachers doing this with the class. You're gonna have however many students you've got, and you've only got 5 of these things. Well, you kind of set it up 5 by 5 or at one little table of students, and they put their yeast in there, and then they put their sugar in there and some salt, and then you come by with the hot water, and then you pour the hot water in all 5 of them, and then every kid stirs it up, and then they dump it in their flour cup. So that's how you can do it, sort of large scale, or you can just do it one by one as you wish. Yeah, but that's it. That's life. Don't forget, this is not a chemical reaction. The other way that usually we make bread rise, or crackers or muffins or cake, is with baking soda. And baking soda will also react with things, or baking powder. It'll react with things, and it also gives off carbon dioxide, and it expands. But that's just chemical reaction. There's 2 chemicals. This is actually life. And the little creatures are living, and they get bigger, and we can make use of them. And then, by the way, when you cook them, they all die, so you don't have to worry about eating these fungi. But they're quite useful, and they've been used by humans for millennia. Okay.